Welcome to this session about deploying and managing Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2016 on Azure SQL database. It is too long topic. My name is Aleksandar Totović, and this is my first time to speak on NAV TechDays. I am in NAV more than 10 years. Currently, I'm working as ERP consulting director in NPS, one of the leading Serbian NAV partners. In the same time, I am editor-in-chief in ERP magazine. I am MVP for Microsoft Dynamics NAV in the last 2 years. I made a lot of how do I courses, videos and a few official NAV courses. And this is in short about me. I write blogs. You can find my URL of my Totović NAV blog. And if you need my contacts, this is my mail. You can write me. I will answer. Not maybe immediately, but I will for sure answer you. Of course, you can find my Twitter account, and I call you if you need something about this topic or some other topics. You are free to ask me. Today's agenda is short, is some basics and historical about NAV on Azure architecture. After that, I will present how we can deploy manually NAV on Azure using Azure SQL. After that, how to prepare our server, tier, and clients for using Azure SQL. How we can scale Azure SQL database, and on the end, deploying using NAV on Azure using management service portal. Because this is something new, and we can make comparison in what situation we can use manual deployment and in what situation we can use management service portal. First, short introduction, NAV on Azure architecture. First time, actually, when we get possibility to put NAV on Azure, it was on NAV 2013, and we can be in situation to use one virtual machine to put NAV server, web server, SQL or database server, for example, as a test environment. Okay, we can use this environment also for production, but this is not serious. This is only one virtual machine, and this is commonly used for testing purpose. If you want production environment, we used two virtual machines, one for NAV server and second for SQL server and NAV database. This is something we used until last version to NAV 2015, and it works. We had to know how to deploy this using PowerShell. It was not so easy, but we could use it. But with NAV 2016, we got new feature. Now we can use SQL as service on Azure. I think this is a really good feature. We can save some money. We can get some better experience, and I will show why and how. First, why to use. As I said, it is easier for using, easier when we use Azure as platform. We have better price and less initial costs. Pay only for what you use, and in this situation, we don't need SQL server to put on Azure, and we don't need to pay virtual machine for SQL. We can start with NAV on Azure, and when we get first client, we can run only this one SQL service for this one client. For second client, for third client, we don't need to use big virtual machine with bigger cost. Okay, if we use Azure, with Azure SQL Server, we have better scalability, and of course, I will show it as well. We have some another specific features, and we will speak about it. First, about cost. I made one small comparison, and you can see this is SO price for a database SO. It is only $15 per month. This is for one small client. This is not some big, serious database, but we can use this for some small client, and it costs only $15 US. In the same time, if we want to prepare a virtual machine for few databases, we must invent almost $300 for these virtual machine. And of course, we must invest in SQL license. I made one example. If we start with NAV on Azure, and each month, for example, we have 4 new clients, and after 5 months, this is 20 clients, and we can compare. This is about the same price, $300. But when we make a monthly compare and total cost, it is not so. You can see green is using Azure SQL, and blue is when we use SQL on virtual machine on Azure. First 4 months, it is much less cost. And when we made total cost of using Azure SQL Server is about $900. But in the same time, when we use Azure on virtual machine, SQL on virtual machine, it is almost $1,500 and plus SQL license. This is not exactly cost compare, but this is some example with some typical clients. And we can see that it is much better to start using Azure SQL if we want to use NAV on Azure. You can make your own calculation, because I said this is not exactly, this is not so precisely. I made some example. You can use this URL. I will show you. You have price calculator, and you can use it to calculate any kind of SQL database on Azure. Just need to change what kind of SQL database want to use. For virtual machine, you can change again, and you can choose a lot of different services on Azure. You can make your real calculation, and after that decide what is better for you. Let's came back. This is not important only about license pricing. We still have some another comparing. For example, when we use SQL as on-premise, we as partner or client, we have obligation to administrate all services for application, database, SQL Server, middleware, networking, storage. Everything is our obligation, and this is cost as well. When we decide to use SQL on virtual machine on Azure, our obligation is thinking about application database, but still about SQL, middleware, and so on. But Microsoft have obligation to manage virtualization, server, storage, and networking. But when we migrate to SQL on Azure as platform, our obligation is to take care only about application and database, nothing else. Everything other is Microsoft and Azure team obligation. Everything about SQL, middleware, virtualization, networking, everything is Microsoft obligation, and this is pretty less cost. You have to have your own administrator for first and for second variant, and this is not so. This is pretty expensive. In third situation, this is almost nothing about system administration. Almost all IT people can work with this. And now I will start with operative work. I will show how you can manually deploy and manage NAV on Azure using, of course, Azure SQL. First, we need to create Azure SQL server. To do this, we need to use our own managed Windows Azure portal. If all partners has possibility to use this portal, I think $150 or something like that per month, and you can make your test environment, your own test environment, and if you decide, you can put your production. You need to create Azure SQL Server, and after that we have to make some specific configuration. We need to add IP address for our computer to the database firewall because of security reason. SQL on Azure must to know that you have possibility to use this database. And then when you get data server on SQL server name, you need to create full database name. This is plus.database.windows.net, and in future you will use only this name. And after that you can start with the deploy database. To do this, I already saw you must to use manage Windows Azure portal. You can find SQL databases here. I already have some databases, and choose servers. I have my two SQL servers, and we can create one new. To create, I will say add. You must choose your login name and password. And must choose your region. I usually use North Europe. In my case, this is the best performance, but I suppose in Belgium this is the best choice. And we need to wait a few minutes. You can see that database is creating. In the meantime, I will prepare for my other databases. I already said that we need to add our IP address because this is my first time to manage my Azure SQL for this IP address. I need to add this IP address for all my servers. And you need to go to database, find configure tab, and you will get current client IP address automatically, and just need to press on add to the allow IP address. You can see this is a lot of IP address I use it for my company, for my home, and just need to press, and I can use this SQL server from this. Sorry, we need to save it. I will do it for my second SQL server. Save. And I think, yes, I already create my my new SQL server on Azure. And you can see this is a very weird name, D50SD4ERRY or MI, I don't see very well. I didn't find a way how to change it, and we must use this. You just need to go to dashboard, and you can find in dashboard name of this database, copy to your file, and add database.windows.net. And this is our new Azure SQL Server. Okay, I will save it because we need it later. And now I will open SQL Management Studio. And I will try to log into this SQL server, and this will not be successful. Because I didn't add IP address, my IP address to this SQL server. Now I will do it also. You can see this is empty, and this is first IP address. And now, just a moment. It depends of internet speed. You can see we have our Azure SQL on our Management Studio. Now we can manage most of this database through our Management Studio. When we finish with create SQL Server, we already finished it. Now we can deploy our database, and we can use it manually on two different ways. I will show first using Wizard to deploy completely database, and after that I will show another way when we use BACPAC file. To use Wizard, we must use our Microsoft SQL Management Studio. We need to find database source. We must choose what database we want to deploy on Azure SQL. And after that, we need to delete all Windows users for this database. This is very important. Then we can start deploy database Wizard. We need to connect to our Azure SQL Server, set some specific parameters, and after that, I think 10-15 minutes, I'm not sure, I will run it, and after 15-20 minutes, I don't know, we will check if this is finished. We can check it in Management Studio and Azure Portal as well. But before I continue, I prepare one potential database deployment issue. If you have a situation that you can select only obsolete service tiers on Azure SQL database, web and business, with a maximum database with 150 gigabytes, and in situation that there is no option to select new service tiers, basic, standard, and premium, this is a big possibility to find this issue. you just need to update your SQL 2014 with cumulative update 5. This is first cumulative update who solve this issue. After that, everything will work fine. Okay, now we have connection to our Azure SQL, and we also need to create connection to local SQL and find what database is our source. I have only one database here, and this is Kronos database NAV. You need right-click, task, and find deploy database to Windows Azure SQL database. This is wizard. You just need to connect to Azure SQL. This is our name we already used. Connect. We can change our database name on Azure if we want. And issue I'm talking about was on this place. You can see we can choose basic, standard, and premium. This is there are new tiers on Azure SQL, but old was web or business. Yes, web or business, and you didn't be possibility to choose one of them. I will choose standard, and after that you need to choose service objective. I will use S1, SO is enough, but I will choose S1 in this situation, and what is maximum database in gigabyte. S as standard enable us maximum 250 gigabytes. I think 100 is enough. And you can see this is wizard, but system will make BACPAC file. System will run with deployment and make BACPAC file temporary, and this BACPAC file will be deployed on Azure SQL, but this is something we don't see. And system will work. I hope it will finish until end of session. We will continue. Now, we need to create Azure virtual machine for our NAV server. To do this, again, we need to use Microsoft Azure portal. We need to create new virtual machine with only Windows Server. Okay, we can have more than only Windows Server. We can have SQL Server. This is not a problem, but we don't need it. We need only Windows Server on this virtual machine. And after that, we need to copy our NAV DVD, installation DVD to this virtual machine. Install only NAV server tier, again as minimum. We can install more. Or you can use from gallery Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2016 image. If you prefer it, you have everything installed on this image. I don't want to create now virtual machine because this is a really long time. I already have a few virtual machines prepared, and I will show you. After we create virtual machines and finish everything them, we need to open client service port on our endpoint on our virtual machine for external login to this server. And I create these virtual machines. For example, you need to choose endpoints. and just create new. And this is everything. You don't need to make nothing else. After a minute or two, endpoint will be opened. Yes, if you want to have connection to Azure SQL with some external computer, not from your computer, if you want to enable some external computers to log in, you have to manually add computer name and IP address to management portal. And I will show how it. For example, I want to add for this computer. And this is my IP address. Now I need to go to SQL database, find my server. This is our new server. Go to configure, and now you need to put your computer name and IP address. And now if we have SQL Server on this computer, we can also be connected to Azure SQL. Now, I want to show how to configure server and client configuration. To configure NAV server tier, we need to log in on this virtual machine using remote desktop connection. After that, we need to run PowerShell ISC as administrator. And we need to use PowerShell script. You can modify, but Microsoft published this PowerShell script on their own blog. And we need to change some parameters in this script to work. And just run script. After that, we can check results. I will do it on one of my virtual machines. Run ISC as administrator. I will open all my scripts. Okay, it is fine. I said we need to change some configuration in this script. For example, we need to add our username, our password. This is only temporary password, and this is not some secret. You can put a path for your license file here. This is standard path file when you have from installation DVD, but you must find a folder from your installation DVD. You can see this is my folder for installation DVD. Then import module for commandlets. After that, again, we need to change server instance. We need to put our database name of our database, server name for our database, and you can see very similar data about username, password, credentials, and SQL Server and SQL database. And I will run first to import our NAV commandlets, then install Windows feature. And now we need to make encryption. To make encryption, we need to make one folder where we put our encryption key. If we run this script without, I currently don't have this folder, we will get error. Just to wait a few seconds and to see maybe we finish with, oh. Yes, this is good. I did check what is. And now we need to wait a few seconds. Sorry, it was pretty faster when I tried a few times. I know. I already told that we need to delete all Windows users, but I forget. Problem was that I was already deleted all Windows users, but I prepare new Windows user for this demo and I forget it. You need to check all users in property. If there are Windows user, this is Windows user, and okay, we need to delete it. I know anti-authority is Windows user as well, and I will delete. Of course, you need to check all users and delete all Windows users. And now we can say standard S1. And wait, I hope it is not finished. I expected something like this, and I have another virtual machine. is this is so slow. Okay, I have this temp file, temp folder here, and I want to show how it looks like when we have not. When we run, we will get, of course, error message, and we need to create folder or create path where we put this dynamic key. Okay, I will delete. And yes, I didn't. And now, okay, now we have. And I have already, I think I have already created this database, but I will try. Yes. We need to import, we created this NAV encryption key, we created, and we add our password and everything we need. And now we import this encrypt key to our server instance, to our NAV SQL server on Azure, with our credential to our SQL database with all necessary information. Just to see if this, I don't know what is the problem with. Of course, we can continue with this. We need to set NAV server configuration to put our credentials. Now we need to put database name and key value as our SQL Azure database. Now we need to add database name in set NAV server configuration. And on the end to enable SQL Connect encryption. We already created. Of course, we need to restart our service. Okay, and import our license. This is part of our license, and we just need to import. And now we need to check results. To check results, we need to check it in database name, in database server, other database credentials, if we encrypted on SQL server connections, and so on. And we can do it administration. This is very hard, but I need fast internet. Okay, this is our service. And we can see on database, this is our Cronus database NAV 9.0, and this is our server we used. LIJWDC and so on. Of course, we have enabled encryption on this SQL connection, enable SQL parameters, and now we have everything we need for this tire. And if we use database we already used on our computer, after install NAV client, we need to run truncate user personalization, user property, access control, and user. And after that, we can run our Windows client. This is not so fast. I want to show I don't have SQL on this virtual machine, but we need to wait. We finished 92% on this computer. It's still working, no errors. I choose the minimum requirement for these virtual machines because I have $150 per month, and I cannot put a few CPUs and so many RAM. And this is slow, possible because of that, but this is our Windows client. Now, how to configure web client. Okay, this is Windows client only virtual machine, of course. If we want to run Windows client from our computer, we need to change to NAV password from our in config file. You must to prepare certificate, but after that it will work. But for web client, it is easier and we have enough time. To configure web client, we already have web server component installed. If we have not, okay, we need to run installation DVD and install them. We need to create endpoints to web client again, as we already put endpoints for client service. We need to put endpoint for our web client. And log in with different user because I have domain user from my computer and this domain is not on this virtual machine. You can use administration username we already used to deploy this database and create virtual machines, or create the same local user on your computer as you have already create users on this virtual machine. After that, you need to type HTTP, your virtual machine name, and cloudapp.net, 8080, Dynamics NAV, and so on. You know what is path for a web client. We need to go to virtual machine. I use virtual machine 2. And we need to add new endpoint, HTTP. I use 8080. And okay, we need to wait a few seconds. It still works. Okay. Now I can put my, and I already said I use my username I already used to create this virtual machine. And this is on NAV Tech Server 2 of a virtual machine I already used. And of course, I want to, after that, to show one possible issue. When you open endpoint, for example, 8080, you can still have problem that you cannot open web client. If you have this situation, you have to go to your virtual machine, open control panel, and in Windows Firewall, open inbound rules and check if we have Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2016 web client with open port. You need to check local port. If you cannot open with web client, this is a reason. If you have just different port, you can open properties and change. If you don't have this service, you need to create new rule. I hope it is opened. Yes, this is our web client, but as I already said, if we have this kind of problem, you just need to open Windows Firewall, go to Advanced Settings, Inbound Rules, and find Microsoft Dynamics NAV web client, if you have, but with different local port, you need to open properties and change it. If you don't have this rule, just need to create new rule, choose port, next, put your 8080 port. I don't want to continue, and give the name you want to use. Okay, we already finished with server tier and clients configuration, but I already said we have two ways to create, to deploy NAV on Azure SQL. I show one. Now I want to show you another way, using directly BACPAC file. Again, you need to use Management Studio. Again, find NAV data. If you don't have BACPAC file, first you need to create. To create, you need to find your database as source. And again delete all Windows user. I must say this for me because I forget it. After that, extract data tire as BACPAC file, connect, and now this is preparation for BACPAC file. Now we want to deploy, we need to connect to Azure SQL server, import data tire as BACPAC file, and again check result when we finish it. Just to see if this is finished. This is not finished, and I hope I will be in situation to do both of them in the same time. I hope. Okay, I already have created BACPAC file, but just to show, you need to do it, you need to choose task, add extract data tire application, go next, choose name, and after that finish creation. Now I want to import this, and I will choose on my new SQL server on Azure, import data tire application, import from local disk. I will use app database for my multi-tenant environment. In the same time, this is answer if, because I got a few questions on my blog, if this is possible to use Azure SQL in multi-tenant environment. Yes, it is possible, it is not problem. And okay, we need to connect, we already have connection. We need to choose database name, okay, standard, S1, 100. We need to check all data and say finish. And now we can wait to finish both of these. In the meantime, I will continue. When we finish with deployment, never mind what way, again we need to go to our virtual machine and run everything to use our database. I already have, just to show, to see what virtual machine I forget. Second server. I want to mount NAV app data. I will deploy on different SQL server, but I already have one deployed. Again, to deploy, this is basic, the same PowerShell script as we already used, but with some modification. And again, we need to import module and add our credentials. Now in import NAV encryption, I already have encryption because I created few minutes ago, and I don't need to create again. But I need to create new server instance. I don't have, and I need to create. Okay. everything is so slow. Okay, I have one new instance, and now I will add encryption key to this service. Unable to encrypt data. Data was encrypted using different key. What is? I'm not sure what is the problem. Okay, no. Okay, import. Credentials? What? I think no. I tried a few times and sorry.
sir.
I will.
You have recreated this new multi-nav service. Maybe you still not have set up the database on this service. In your PowerShell script, you would like to configure the application database name nav19 app, isn't it? With the import nav encryption key.
Yes.
But it's still not configured in the service, in the multi-nav90 service. You've set up it with the mouse.
Yes, I set up it, but this script need to add this encryption to.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, because I need to add this encryption file. Sorry, I didn't.
When you first showed us importing the encryption key
Yes.
earlier into the database earlier, you used that script and you had the LIJ, you had the database as LIJ. So you've already imported the encryption key into it. Now you're trying to import another encryption key?
The same encryption key.
No, because you reran the.
Okay, I create again. Yes, I create again second, but this is not connected with this. Okay. Because encryption key is just for this database. Okay, I will continue, and on the end I will came back to show multi-tenant. Because we have 20 few minutes, I will try to make it on the end of the session. We need to try how we can scale Azure SQL. And to scale Azure SQL database, we can use service tier as basic, standard, or premium. We can change performance level and maximum size. As you already saw, I use the performance level SO, S1, S2. We can use premium or some other. And we can change maximum size of all these databases. If we use single databases as service tiers, we can choose basic. And as standard, we can use SO, S1, S2, S3, and we have few premium premium service tiers, P1, P2, and so on. The maximum of database size for basic is 2 gigabytes, and this is only for really small databases. For NAV, you usually need to use standard or maybe some big project premium, but standard is well enough. In standard, we can use 250 gigabytes for databases. If you think that NAV on Azure SQL is for standard repeatability model for pretty easy and small companies, this is enough for them. But if we want to have more complex database, we can use elastic database pool. And in this situation, we don't need to manually make scaling from S1 to S2, for example, or to S3. We can configure elastic database pool, and system will automatically change service tier. If system need more than S2, system will automatically start with S3. When we make some price comparison, what is basic, standard, and premium, you can see that basic, as I already said, yes, this is not so expensive, but this is only for small databases. Standard is something we generally need to use for NAV. And you can see 200 and some dollars, 400 and so on per month. Okay, we can use premium, but this is, I think this is not necessary for NAV databases. To scaling Azure SQL database, we need to understand DTUs. This is database transaction unit and exactly mean this unit of measure in SQL database that represent the relative power database based on a real world measure, the database transaction. Of course, we have some unit of measure. This is not based on standard transaction, and we can add some number of DTUs to our databases. It depends of this what we tier use. If we use single databases, you can see if we choose, for example, S1, we can use 20 DTUs. If we use S2, 50 DTUs. And this is single model. But if we use elastic model, system will automatically, if system recognizes it needs more DTUs, system automatically will change and use more. When you create database SQL server on Azure, you will get, I think, 15,000 DTUs for completely server. And after that, every time when you create a database, you spend 50, 100 or some DTUs for this database. To make your own calculation, you can use this URL. You can put your CPUs, memory, or etc. and make your calculation what you really DTUs need. And if we want to change this manually, if we don't use elastic model, because elastic model is more expensive. This is more comfortable, but this is more expensive. And if we want to use for less price model, this is better solution to use single databases. And for example, if we choose one database, you can go to Scale tab, and okay, you can choose basic, standard, or premium. But by default, this is standard. When we deploy, we use standard. But now we can, for example, choose to put only in S1 because we don't need S2 for this database, and we can say this is not 250. I need just 50 gigabytes or something like that. Every time when you do something like that, you need to click Save. And after few seconds, you already finished with scaling. This is not so complex job, and I think if you have not hundreds of databases, this is not complex. You can do it manually, but if you have hundreds, more 1,000 databases, okay, elastic databases, it is a better solution. By default, you have, just a moment. When you create databases, system automatically create backups, and you don't need to take care about this, but just to open. We finished with this deployment. Everything is okay. And of course with this another. I will show how to check if everything okay, but first you can see all backups for your databases. Every time if you want to restore, you can choose and run restore, choose what you exactly want and continue. I don't want in this moment to put it. Just to open to find our server, okay, databases. This is our new, and this is, yes, this is another. We have two databases created on our new SQL server. You can also find them when we refresh. You can see Cronus databases and NAV 90 app. If you want to make copy of some of your databases, you can do it, of course. You can just choose what database you want to copy and choose copy. By default, you will get copy name. You can change name if you want and find on what server you want to make copy. Now you can have 10 servers and find the database on one server and make copy on some another. I will choose our new server and system will create it. You can see this is creating process of copy NAV 90 app. Now we talked about manually deployment of SQL databases on Azure SQL, but we have new tool, management service portal for using NAV on Azure. And this is a really good tool for partners. Partners are enabled to manage all databases for their clients, but with some conditions. This portal can be used only in multi-tenant environment, not in single-tenant environment. And you can make your environment that you can prepare your database, and after that, not automatically, but really very easy, deploy your application to your portal, your tenants, your help file, and manage on a really easy way without any administration work. You don't need to know PowerShell, you don't need to know some administration task, you just need to use portal very similar as web client on NAV. This is portal, very similar as I already said, web client. Everything can be used with mouse and really easy. If you want to make new service, you can choose, you can say, I want new application service and give name. You can put your description. You can change your description name, and you can put here your login screen image, splash screen image, and splash screen image narrow. You can choose your brand, and all clients who log in on using this application service, you will see your brand on splash screen and some other. Then you can choose to put legal links, feedback link, privacy link, community link, sign-in help link. All these links will be automatically showed when client try to log in NAV using a web client, and it will be helpful. And you can put your license here. Just need to click browse and find your license and upload. If you want to use Office 365 authentication, you just need to register. Just I cannot more to prepare, and I don't want to save it because I cannot prepare a lot of services. If you want to see how to deploy your application, you just need to go to applications, and you can say new, and everything we need to new add. I think I cannot make more. When you create, you need to add versions, and in each version you can, using business logic, you can add your BACPAC file. Every time it is easy, just need to browse, find your BACPAC and upload. The same is for tenant data. When I say tenant data, I think on a tenant template, because we can upload tenant template and use this template for creating every new tenant for new customers. And of course, help data. When we have everything created, and we want to add just new tenant, we can say, okay, of course I want new tenant. Need to choose what country. You can put some tags. You can add users for this tenant and everything you need. And after that, just use template for upload and nothing else. This is really, really easy, and almost all IT people can work on this, don't need administration knowledge. Okay, it have more additional features, but this is just a basic, because I know you already had a session about this management portal. I just want to show, when you compare manually work and using management portal, what is difference. But when we want to compare this, manually deploying and management portal using. When we use manually deployment, we can use it for multi-tenant and single-tenant environment. When we use management portal, only multi-tenant environment. And when we use manually, we have only database as service. Everything another is virtual machine. This is not really a service. But when we use a management portal, this is really, everything is service. And this is much easier for administration. When we want to use manually, we have less initial cost. And we have, on management portal, we have some initial cost and minimum 10 clients per year. And I said initial cost, I'm not 100% sure about prices, but I think 1,300 something euros is application service. And you have 10 databases included in this price, but this is something you must to invest. When you have only one client or two clients, this is not so cheap. And you have obligation to implement 10 clients in first year. This is maybe not so comfortable, but this is a really good tool, and every time I will choose them, because when we compare managing, okay, we need to pay this 1,300 euros, but this is a really easy managing. We don't need administrator work. We don't need one new guy to work with this tool. But on the other side, when we want to work manually, I think we need some people to work with Azure Portal. We need to administrate NAV server, database, and application. But when we use Portal, we need to administrate only application. And by my opinion, then it's better to use manually. Manually is better when we want to use single tenant. We have some specific client, and this is not for multi-tenant, some specific development, and this is better situation to use single tenant environment. And maybe in beginning, when you have only 1, 2, 3 clients, to save some money, because it have a less initial cost. But if you have a repeatable solution, and you have really easy clients for implement with multi-tenant environment, every time I think that Portal is only one solution. And easy managing is a really big benefit. Again, I made one comparison in money, because everything is money. And you can see green is, again, this is not exactly cost. This is some some calculation. Based, you can see on 5 clients, 10 clients, 15, 20 so clients. All of these clients has 5 users in the same time. Really small clients, and this is just for calculation. When we use Management Portal, we have some initial cost. I calculate cost for all costs for virtual machine, for Portal, for everything, for NAV subscription license, everything for this, for 5 users per client. This is, maybe this is not the same in all countries, but this is pretty the same. Okay, we have some initial costs. In this situation, this is not null, about 100 euros when we don't have new customers, but you can see about here, this cost is the same. After that, using manually is more expensive, and I didn't calculate administrator guy cost. This is only license and the cost of Azure subscription, and about this. I didn't use user cost of people. And I think this is, when we calculate completely cost, this is not this point. I think maybe after 5, 6 clients, it is cheaper to use Management Portal. And okay, sorry. Just to wrap up what we talking in this session, we made small introduction in NAV and Azure, creating new Azure SQL server. We deploy completely NAV 2016 database on Azure using Wizard and extract data tier as BACPAC file. I show some issues in the deployment process. Create Azure Virtual Machine, open client service port on Azure Virtual Machine, how to register IP address on server virtual machine on Azure SQL Server, how to configure NAV server tier, Windows client and web client, how to scale Azure SQL database, understanding DTUs and using of management service portal. All scripts I use, but I first must to see what is problem with multi-tenant, will be on my blog, and everything you need, okay, you can ask me now, but okay, you can send me a question by email. But now you can ask me any question, and I will again try to see what is the problem with multi-tenant. Okay, thank you. Just first shirt.
Oh, I didn't have.
Okay.
My question was, can I get a t-shirt? No. For a SQL Azure database, how do we do that for maintenance of a database, like rebuild, defrag, integrity checking, statistics update? Repeat. On the SQL Azure database. Okay. For the SQL Azure database, how can we implement the maintenance on it? Rebuild index defrag, integrity check, update statistics. As far as I understood, when I checked the SQL Azure database, there was nothing like SQL Server Agent.
No, everything is managed by Microsoft Azure team. You can use dashboard to see if you need to change some tier and give more DTUs or something like that, but everything other is managed by Azure team. After that.
When you were connecting the NAV virtual machine in Azure to the SQL server, you entered the IP address of the Azure VM, but you can't guarantee that that's going to remain. So what's your recommendations there? Because your virtual IP address can change.
IP address can change. You think when you add IP in firewall?
So when you put the IP address on the client, sorry, when you put the IP address on your SQL side, your Azure SQL side of the client, which was your Azure VM, with your NAV service running, that IP address of that virtual machine can change.
Okay. You need to change this again in portal.
So you'd have to monitor all the time.
But you don't need to add IP address for regular work. Only if you want to connect from this virtual machine on SQL server. If you have SQL Management Studio, for example, on this virtual machine, and you want to enable connection for this virtual machine to this database, in this case, you need to add this IP address. If you don't need this requirement, you don't need to do it.
Okay, thanks.
How do you know how to scale the Azure SQL server? So do you start by SO and work your way up, or what do you recommend?
First, everything depends of client type. But if we think about Azure SQL and NAV, that this is for standard implementation, really repeatability model with 99% of the same objects. This is pretty the small clients. I every time recommend SO, and you need to monitor if everything works fine. Okay, you don't need to spend more money. But SO or S1 is enough, by my opinion. In start SO, after that S1 when you see in dashboard. But SO is enough.
All right, thank you.
At the beginning, we saw the price for the SQL Server on Azure and the full virtual machine on Azure. So, but at the price for the SQL Server on Azure, I think there's an additional price for the VMware for the NAV service, or not? Or it's included?
No, you ask for a license.
And not the license. We saw the initial price for the SQL Server on Azure. That was $15 a month or something like that. But the virtual machine for the NAV service, that's additional or not?
Yes. This is price, I think, for A3 model. I didn't use the most cheap variant because it can work only on 1 or 2 databases. But you can use calculator and see what is for your example. If you have only maybe 2 databases, okay, you don't need $300 in virtual machines. But if you need 10 databases, you will need it for sure.
Okay, thank you.
I have one technical question about SQL on Azure limitations. Let's say it's from my experience right now. We have some customers which have some external integrations which have been done on the SQL Server directly. But for this reason, some, let's say, external ports should be opened. Is it possible to manage SQL Server on Azure? Because when all those ports which I saw you are opening, it's on the client, let's say, side. And if Azure's Navision SQL Server is based on some additional layer somewhere behind on additional out of, I'd say, external firewalls, is it possible to
it has some limitations, but if we want to make standard development, we can use standard Azure SQL for development. This is no problem, but for some integration directly on SQL,
yes,
it has some limitation. It is better to use web services if you can, but it has some limitation. But again, Azure SQL, by my opinion, I cannot speak in Microsoft name, is on the first place for small companies. Really, I speak currently. Okay, for 2 or 3 years, I don't know. It's possible it will be a totally different situation. But currently, this is for small companies, for a small price, and not for some, not only big, for some complex company with complex business processes for integration. This is not for this business. This is just my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Here. Oh.
Is it possible to use the client's existing Active Directory domain to authenticate against on Azure SQL?
Active Directory, standard Active Directory, no. I didn't try to use Azure Active Directory. I know it can be used, but I didn't try. But standard Active Directory, it cannot be used.
The database size that you set, what happens when you hit the size limit? Does the database stop functioning, or do you get a warning saying it's reached its limit? So you set 250, originally you set, what was it, 100 gigabyte? Say
Yes.
the database got to 100 gigabyte, does the database stop functioning?
You can use, for example, 100 gigabytes
Yeah,
and
but what happens when
change.
it hits 100 gigabytes?
Sorry.
What happens when it hits that limit?
You can change to 150.
What
If
do you get a warning?
if you use standard,
Yep.
you can scale from I think 20 gigabytes to 250.
Yep.
If you can scale and make bigger. bigger or less, this is not problem. But if you need more than 250 gigabytes, you need to change to premium packet.
But do you get a warning? Do you, like on the management?
You just need to open a management portal and change it and save.
Okay.
This is only in standard environment. This is only few minutes job. You just need to change size and press save and nothing else. Here.
Excuse me, I want to know if you have any experience with other things in SQL Server, like stored procedures, views. Can we like upload them through these BACPAC files and then make them automatic through the portal, or they are completely manual?
If you want, ask me if we can automatically deploy.
My question is that I do not have a good impression of these BACPAC files. I don't know what they take out of database. Do they also move stored procedures and views and these things?
I don't know if this is possible. As I know, only with BAC file you can use Wizard, but again, this is BACPAC file. If you use management portal, again, this is BACPAC file. As I know, only BACPAC file. Maybe in future, but currently, no.
You set up, when you set up the SQL on Azure, you also added the service tier IP. But can I also assign it then to, when I have my own network on Azure, will it be then still an island where I always have to open it, the security? Or can it also be part of my SQL Azure network that every machine can access it?
I have in my company, I have a private network. When I add IP, a system will add external IP address, not internal. And you don't need to give IP address for your computer, just for your company external IP address.
But if I have an Azure, does this mean I always have to leave my Azure network and access the SQL from outside, so that it's a dedicated island, let's say it like this?
No, if you want to use outside your company, you just need to add new address. And after that, when you finish, you can delete this, and this is no problem.
You're using Azure Networks.
Yeah, Azure Networks. So right now you set it up that I always have to go over the internet, but can I have it inside my net so that I don't have any
When you have inside, but you still have to use some virtual machine on Azure. When you have
they are in my network in Azure.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I will remember it, and I will try to give answer on my blog. This is a good question. I don't know really. Thank you. I will try to make this multi-tenant, and I will put this video on my blog. Sorry.